of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good to have you here, folks, as always. Just an announcement to silence all cell phones and other devices that you may have. Also, you may be, I have to make this announcement every time. Sometimes people are confused about this, but to notice to all members of the public in attendance that you may be recorded via audio or video by other members of the public, just so that you're aware of that. Item number 4 on the agenda is our Sunoco Mariner 2 update, and I will ask Mr. Ruben to give us a update.
Chairman, thank you. As members of the audience know, that West Goshen Township has an ongoing case against Sunoco Logistics LP in connection with the Mariner East 2 pipeline and its construction. Hearings in that matter concluded late April. Main briefs were filed June 5, and reply briefs are due June 25th. So we'll be expecting a decision from Judge Barnes in that case probably September, early September. That's what I expect. Also, I think the board is aware because we've traded some opinions. On June 14th, the Public Utilities Commission ruled in the Senator Dinniman litigation, affirming in part or reversing in part the decision of Administrative Law Judge Barnes. Significantly, they upheld the injunction against further construction in West Whiteland Township in regard to Mariner 2 until certain conditions preceding were met. They did permit restart of Mariner 1, which is in the ground and been operating since the Public Utility Enforcement Division permitted them to restart. Important to, I think, this board is that one of the requirements of Judge Barnes' order, which was upheld by the Public Utility Commission, was that Sunoco prepare a comprehensive emergency response plan within 20 days. That'll be submitted to not just the appellants in that case, but also various agencies for review and comment. So something that I know this township has been preaching and asking for some time will probably will very likely come to fruition very shortly, which is a good thing. Any questions?
Any questions from the audience?
Hi, I'm Maxine Richter, and I'm a resident of West Goshen, and I'm just a little curious, and curiosity killed a cat. Satisfaction brought him back. If you can tell me where I can find the answer, or if you can answer it. But Sunoco bought for about $1 million the land on Boot Road that was designated to become an assisted living. And since I've heard their arguments that we don't even need a valve or it's going to be placed at a different place, then why did they buy it? How did they?
They bought it, designed it, and actually had every intention to put a valve on what was known as the Janiac parcel, which was approved for a senior living facility. That's what sparked the litigation brought by West Goshen to enforce the settlement agreement, because pursuant to the settlement agreement, it's pretty clear that they're allowed to put a valve or any other above ground facility on the land they own on the west side on Boot Road, the west side of 202, where their existing pump station is, and land to the north of that, but not anything else in the township, and specifically nothing on that parcel. The Public Utility Commission granted the emergency relief requested and has enjoined them from using the parcel for that purpose. They still will be using it for a temporary staging area and putting an underground pipe close to the road, close to the right-of-way. But that land will be redeveloped someday. I don't know exactly what that will be, but they won't be using it for pipeline facilities.
Oh, okay. What was the re word that you used?
I'm sorry,
That you said that land will be
reused,
reused. Okay.
redeveloped
Redeveloped.
in some fashion.
Thank you.
And Maxine, just for your information, it was $2.2 million.
2.2.
I just wanted to correct it.
But we have to buy it back. It's reused or something. Redeveloped.
Sunoco, best we understand, will sell it after they have put in the pipeline beneath. And that's on hold in part because of the West Whiteland litigation and our litigation.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions from the audience? I did have one question. Mr. Broom, a lot of folks have been asking us about the scope of that recent order. My understanding is it's just really limited to West Whiteland, although in effect it might be affecting the regional development. Could you give us any insight into that?
No, I think you're right, but that's the most critical leg of what they have left. So the HDD drills to and from West Whiteland can't really be completed, that's my understanding, until that litigation or our litigation is resolved. So I think that that is why you're not seeing active drilling in East Goshen and in West Goshen.
Thanks, sir. And I understand you might have something for us to post.
Yeah, I sent, the opinion actually just came out yesterday. There was the motion before the PUC on Thursday. The opinion was released yesterday. I sent it to Casey this morning, and I'm sure it'll be up on our website.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Broom.
You got it.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, the next item on our agenda, item number 5, is a discussion and possible final land development plan for 3 modular classroom buildings for the Westchester Area School District at 1150 Delancey Place.
Rob Sarver, Riverhead School District, Mark Rose is the capital project manager. We received a positive recommendation from the planning commission. Rick's put on board the plan for Glen Acres Elementary School, and you'll see 3.
Mr. I don't know if I could just interrupt it, maybe folks could hear you if you stood over there by the microphone. Thank you, sir.
This is the Glen Acres Elementary School property shown on the screen, which shows the existing facilities, and there are 3 rectangles, which is Rick's designating with his the pointer. They are 3 portable classrooms which are being put on the school to deal with the population increase. And how long will they be there, Mark?
4 years.
4 years. And the hope is that there will be new elementary school facilities which may tend to alleviate some of the overcrowding. The school district expanded Exton Elementary in 2015. School district's back again, expanding even further. Mark was in East Goshen, expanding the East Goshen Elementary School because of the increase in the elementary school population. They have a how many year program?
2.5-year program.
2.5-year program. You're pretty well already taking care of the middle schools and the high schools, but there's this continuing program to expand the elementary schools, which the population is increasing a little bit faster than anticipated. Is that a fair statement?
Right.
So we're here to ask for final plan approval for this plan, and the contractors are ready to go to get the units placed in operation before the next school year. And we'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the audience? Dr. White?
Hi, I'm Doug White, West Goshen Township. I think this is a good plan. It's a cost-effective way for the school district to accommodate the students. And is there any way that these temporary units could be made permanent, like the other ones were years ago?
These ones will not be, because we will see a decline in population as we building 11th elementary school in the school district. This will actually help us to just get by this bubble, and the student population will be increased. And after we do the renovations, build a new school, build an additional classrooms at East Coast Elementary School, which is starting this summer.
Okay,
And you're replacing.
And these are leased as well.
okay. I think it's a good plan. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. White. Any other members of the audience? Any questions? Any questions from the board? Mr. Craig, any insight into this?
It's a very simple plan. It's going on all impervious surface. There's no stormwater requirements. It's just really a very simple temporary change, so there's not much more to add.
I move for approval. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Hey, Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, item number 6 on our agenda, so great pleasure. We're going to do a recognition of township employees with over 20 years of service and those with over 25 years of service to the West Goshen Township. And I think many of you will be surprised how many employees we actually have over 20 years. So Robin Stunzebeck has been working diligently along with the township manager and other staff, and has helped develop this recognition of township employee program. We would like to make this practice going into the future. It's never been done before. Simple recognition of all the hard work and dedication these employees have had to our township to make it the township that it is today. With that said, I'd like to hand it over to Robin Stunzebeck.
Thank you. This is a recognition of employees that have been with the township for more than 20 years, some of which you'll be very impressed to know they've been here for probably most of their lifetime, which is really quite a value to us as a community. So the first person I'd like to recognize is Mr. Kim Norsoff. He has served the township in the streets department for 41 years, but apparently his career started in almost every other department within the township. So he's a master of all trades. Thank you very much, Kim. The next person we're going to recognize is is Sergeant Tony Storti. Is he here today? Okay. Well, we'll thank him for his service. He's been with the township for 38 years in the police department. Sergeant Joe Burt. He's here tonight. He has served the township for 37 years and is pretty well known now that he is retiring this year, and we're going to miss him. Thank you so much for your service. Now, he's going to say he was probably 8 years old when he joined the police department, but Chief Joseph Gleason has been here for 36 years. Next is Captain Greg Stone, who's been with the police department for 32 years. He was 10 when he joined. 31 years on the police department, Officer Joe Caraba. Is he here tonight? Let him know we appreciate his service. Thank you. Parks and Recreation, Doreen McLuhan. I think she was going to try to make it, but since she had a conflict. She's been with the township for 28 years. Sergeant Steve Peacock. Is he here tonight? No? Okay, well he's been here for 28 years as well. Mr. Joe DiPietro, in the Wastewater Department Sewer Authority. No? Okay. Cindy Holdeman, police officer for 25 years with West Goshen Township. Jennifer Latzer is one of our HR and assistant finance manager in the administration, and she's been with the finance department for 23 years. Mr. Bartolome, Streets Department, 23 years. I was going to say, he's usually here during the meeting.
Birthday today, he did not.
Okay. They couldn't have started a year before they went to dinner. Wastewater, so the Sewer Authority, Mr. Jim Leon. Is he here tonight? Thank you for his service. Lieutenant Justin DeMadio. Yay, thank you. He's been with the police department for 22 years. Lieutenant Michael Carroll has also been with the police department for 22 years. Okay. Mr. Jeff Howell from the Sword. Nope. Officer Mike Meredith. Mr. Meredith has been with us for 21 years. Mike Maffa has also been with us in the Sewer Authority currently 21 years. Officer Darren Sedlak. He's been with the department for 20 years. Mr. Mike McCarthy. And I do not believe, okay, and he's 20 years with the Streets Department. And Mr. Ken Lear, who's been with the Parks and Recreation Department for 20 years as well. Thank you all for being here to acknowledge their service, and thank you all for your service in our township.
Folks, the next item on the agenda, number 7, reports for the month of May 2018. Our first report is the police report presented by Chief Joseph Gleason.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Board of Supervisors, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. For the month of May, the West Goshen Police Department responded to 2,007 calls for service. We responded to 55 alarms, 2 of which were valid. We investigated 30 reportable motor vehicle accidents, and we logged 23,115 miles on our patrol vehicles. Amongst other locations, selective enforcement was active on North New Street, Sylvan Road, Route 100 Spur, South Five Points Road, Pottstown Pike, and Longview Drive. Our career development continues. We had a pretty good month with training, so I will read the topics, but not specific officers that attended, although the majority of the department did attend training at one time or another during the month. Several officers attended advanced roadside impairment driving enforcement. Numerous officers attended low light firearms training. Officer Holman attended a CISM meeting, critical incident, crisis intervention management. And then several officers attended crisis intervention team training. The ERT had their monthly training. We had EVOC training, which is emergency vehicle operations training. Sergeant Liss, as you know, will be attending the FBI National Academy in 2 weeks, and he did a one-day trip down there to get acclimated and purchase all his materials. He had a nice tour of the facility down there. I went to the Islamic Society of Chester County on May 24th for sharing Ramadan. The command staff attended the FBI National Academy retrainer, and we attended presentations on the Las Vegas incident, the Amish school incident, the Charlottesville United Pride presentation, and Arts of Perception. In addition, an officer attended Keeping You Informed, which is a district attorney-sponsored program for search and seizure and legal updates for sexual assaults. Our traffic safety attended regional traffic incident management, and several of the officers attended Stewards of Children program, which is a program, it's a grant sponsored to bring awareness to abuse of children. So one public service announcement in the back of the room. There are numerous books back here that the police department has purchased regarding identity theft. It's a small pocket, but it's a very comprehensive guide, so you're welcome to take them. And they're at the police department also if you need additional ones. On the agenda, you'll notice that there's a small subchapter under my name. I'd like to make a presentation and an announcement tonight and do a swearing in. Approximately 2 years ago, I was approached by one of my officers inquiring about the implementation of the chaplain program. And I thought it was a wonderful idea. We've never had one before. So we started a search for it. And I'd like to just read what I prepared as far as a statement, and then a little bio on the gentleman that has expressed interest in volunteering his services to us, and then we'll have a swearing in. The role of the police chaplain is to provide spiritual guidance and counseling to all members of the department, both sworn and civilian, as well as their families in times of need. Chaplains provide moral support and build a rapport with the officers. They can ride along with the officers, developing first-hand experience and knowledge of what cops face daily. By building trust and credibility, chaplains are able to effectively help officers in times of crisis, as well as months and even years after. Approximately 2 years ago, as I stated, I was approached by one of my officers asking me if we could have a chaplain for the department. An officer suggested a local pastor that he knows, and after sitting down with that pastor, it was clear to me that he was very interested in providing whatever support he can to the agency and to the officers. About a year ago, I wanted to allow him to come in and start to get to know the officers, to see if it was a good fit, to be honest with you. And to say the least, it was a wonderful fit. He stopped in at shift changes periodically just to socialize and build a relationship with the officers, and blending his personality with theirs. He has been wonderful and has been very well received by the officers. We've had a tough year this year, but he's been there all along the way, and he's been providing support to our officers. Tonight, I want to make a partnership with him in the department, officially. So I would ask him to step up and take the chaplain's oath. I would like to introduce William Birch, more affectionately known as Billy. Billy is the pastor of the Christ Community Church in West Goshen Township. He has been with the church leading the student ministry since 1993, but for the last 6 years has led and served the people of his church and the community in the role of lead pastor. Billy grew up in Baltimore, where his father was a patrolman with the Baltimore City Police Department, so he comes from a police family. He understands. He's received a Master's of Arts and a Master's of Divinity at the Trinity Seminary in Chicago and is currently working on his doctorate. Billy completed the police chaplaincy training program in October of 2016, and he came on board with the West Goshen Police Department just over a year ago. He's married to his bride, Kimberly, of almost 28 years, and they have 3 children, Harrison, Garrett, and Elise. So at this time, I would ask Assistant Manager Derek Davis to come up and administer the chaplain's oath. Kimberly, would you like to come up? Probably in the center.
Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, William Birch,
I, William Birch,
do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as chaplain.
and will faithfully and impartially, whatever you
Discharge my
said,
duties.
discharge my duties as
3 words at a time, Derek.
Of the West Goshen Township Police
of the
Department
West Goshen Township Police Department,
to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God.
to the best of my skills and abilities, so help me God. Thank you. Please ask me to say a few words before I just want to say that I really appreciate the opportunity, to serve the officers, and it has been a real joy of mine to be involved in their lives in any way, shape, or form. As the chaplain training program, as some of the goals are just to assist and help and be there and minister to the whole person. That's spiritually. That's emotionally, that it can be really draining and taxing. When you read some of the nationwide surveys and nationwide statistics, and you realize that, wow, the stress, the shift work, the financial burdens, and such as police officers has put them in a high category of risk in terms of things such as divorce, alcoholism, even suicide. And having grown up in a home where my dad had experienced some of these detrimental things in his life, I just wanted to give back, And so by far the most difficult thing has been to encourage guys mentally. Kidding, Joe. Yeah, no, and it's just been a great thing. It's been a real joy. And you guys don't get to hang out maybe in the squad room as much like during shift change, but it's a great time. It keeps me immature. It keeps me, it's a great time. And it's a real special group of guys. That's what I've noticed when I first walked in there, that, man, this is a great team of people that really have each other's back, that really care deeply for each other. So for all of you who are part of this, it's been a really unique thing to see. That I've not seen a team like this in any way ever. You know, I'm like, man, I'm just getting to know the guys and just really seeing what they do and how they respond. And under you guys' leadership, it's been a joy of mine. So I just want to tell you that and thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. All right.
With his chaplain's badge to make it official, so if he comes out to assist us in need or whatever, he has a form of identification. So
All right, thank you.
and I swear I didn't write his speech. I wish I did. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 7B, Fire Marshal's Report, including Goshen Fire Company and Good Fellowship Ambulance Company, presented by Fire Marshal Andrea Testa.
Thank you. For the month of May, there were a total of 28 inspections. 1 commercial use and occupancy, 5 fire blocking, 2 sprinkler, 4 framing, 5 walkthrough, 2 prom, 1 residential final, 5 underground fire lines, 2 standpipe, and 1 sprinkler break. There were 6 fire calls for the month, 4 automatic fire alarms, and 2 house fires. There were 3 meetings, 1 fire call follow-up. I gave 1 fire safety presentation, and I attended 5 hours of training. The Westchester Fire Department had 28 calls for the month, and Good Fellowship Ambulance had 150 calls. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Agenda item 7C is the building official's report presented by building official John Beswick. Good evening, John.
For the month of May, there was a total of 127 permits, 1 single-family dwelling, 28 building, 22 electrical, 2 fire protection, 16 HVAC, 10 plumbing, 15 roofing, 10 zoning, and 3 use and occupancies, 10 E&S, 2 sewer tapping connections, 1 open space, and 7 road occupancies. The estimated cost of construction was $3,856,832.41, and the permit fees were $48,720.95. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next item on the agenda, number 8, is the Board of Supervisors announcement. I will start with my left. Good evening, Mary. Any announcements?
No, I have no announcements today.
I have one announcement for today. Can you guys hear me through the microphone? Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's very loud. Okay, so I'll talk louder. This past first of the Sewer Authority, in their last meeting at the beginning of June, they came to a conclusion as to the recommendation that they're going to be making to the township with respect to the rate increase. At the end of August, we are having a second public meeting after we have our standard Board of Supervisors meeting, so that the public can join us in a conversation about the rate increase, but also to receive an update on all of the work that's been performed to date and to have a better understanding of what's still to come. So I wanted to make that announcement today so that if people were interested in participating, it will be posted when it's finalized, the actual date, somewhere towards the end of August. So that if you are interested in learning more about it, you have an opportunity to ask questions of both the Sewer Authority Board as well as the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
I'll save my announcement to last. I'll move over to Mr. Meehan. Nothing? Mr. Purnell.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for being late. I just had a problem I couldn't avoid. The second thing is I have a package here from the Historical Commission that I'd like to pass on to our solicitor. It is a compilation of other historical ordinances in the surrounding area that we might consider for adoption by West Goshen at some point in the future.
Certainly.
Pass that down, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Purnell. Just a quick announcement. We've announced this before the beginning of the year. We're starting to not already, I'm not sure if we posted, but we will be putting out RFPs for our engineering contract and also for our banking institutions. We do this to ensure that we can get the best bargain for the taxpayers' bucks. That's basically it, folks. So stay tuned for that. That should be posted. Casey, has that been posted yet? Or is that
The engineer RFP will be sent out tomorrow.
tomorrow?
And bank soon.
Soon. Okay. Any questions on the announcements from the township supervisors? Okay, great. Bob, I'm sorry, I'll just be there, sir.
All right, I have two. On the rate increase, you got any proposed, I know nothing says that. Any idea of the proposed rate increase on the sewer?
I was unable to actually attend a meeting earlier this month, and so I do not have an exact number. But the number that I've been made aware of in previous conversations is that the rate will be recommended somewhere around $95 to $97.
Oh, okay.
It's the total quarterly rate.
Okay. Just proposed, I voted.
It's up 30, and that's the recommendation. It's a $30 plus increase.
I think my other one was to Derek, because you addressed this a long time ago on the banks. When you select a bank, do you guys think sometimes you're going to go ahead with the being involved in them for direct deposits for people who use like bill pay and stuff?
Yeah, that's one of the initiatives that the
Is
board.
that, I would like to see that very much, because it takes like 2 weeks for my stuff to clear, even though I pay it early.
Yeah, we're going to get online banking and everything.
Okay, so that'll be part of it?
That'll be part of the budget process for 2019, because the software takes a while to get going.
Any other questions? Okay, item number 9 on the agenda is the township manager's announcements. Mr. Casey Lujan.
Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of quick announcements. Our comprehensive plan task force meeting for June is canceled. That would have been June 26th. Our next meeting will be the 4th Tuesday in June. I'm sorry, 4th Monday. Sorry, 4th Monday in June and July. And also, we have a couple of sewer authority meetings, and I know the Park and Rec Board meeting was moved from tomorrow night to the 27th of June, so please check our website for those updates, especially for the next 2 sewer authority meetings, because July 4th is one day, and I think we had a meeting conflict with a bunch of members for the August meeting, so they pushed the meeting as well. So please check the website for those new dates. Thank you.
Okay. Also, Mr. Lynn, it slipped my mind too, but that recent grant that we were awarded.
Yeah.
That's a great announcement, folks, and really good news about training, Mr. Lujan.
Yeah, we can, I'll do it now. We have received about a $135,000 grant through the work of Carolyn Camilla, our state representative, to focus on pipeline safety training. We are sending about 25 firefighters for hands-on pipeline firefighting training. I mean, dressed up, fighting fires, down to Texas A&M University in College Station. That is in early September. It's about 20% classroom, 80%, again, full firefighting gear, hands-on. I will be chaperoning the trip, not fighting fires. I'll be watching from afar. The second part of the grant, we will be sending managers, emergency operations coordinators, public works directors to Department of Transportation training in Oklahoma City in November for pipeline regulation training, education. That's 2.5 days of training with DOT, and it's all PHMSA related, so management can get a better feel for pipeline regulation. And it's a national course, both are national courses, so we're very lucky to get those grants. And Derek and I will be working, as soon as you sign the grant agreement tonight, we'll be getting with our travel agent to get all the arrangements made for the trips.
I want to thank our township staff for obtaining that grant, and I want to also thank Representative Comita for having the foresight, knowing what we're facing with pipelines, to help us be prepared in case something happens. Thank you. Next item on the agenda. Oh.
I was going to make a comment that in my firefighting experience, Texas A&M is absolutely outstanding as a facility and a training medium. They are the best.
That's something, yes, I failed to mention, but they're supposed to be the premier training when it comes to pipeline next item on the agenda, question from the audience. Mr. Casey, please.
Good evening. The terms of the grant, what it's sending personnel down to be trained, is does the grant also allow for this information to be disseminated back to the public in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, as part of the grant, the participants, we will obviously choose people to come do a presentation. We'll do a presentation to the board, probably in December, because we're not going back to, we're doing our training in November. So we'll have public presentations of lessons learned. There's nothing, to my knowledge, there's nothing secret about fighting a pipeline fire. Pretty much helping us out. They will be offering summaries of their experiences for the board to hear in public. So yeah, by December.
So like some of the training materials that are going to be made available to the township personnel, are those, is it possible to get a copy of that training information?
I don't believe anything's proprietary, but we will have to check with DOT, I'm not sure. We'll make whatever we can available that's public.
If it is, I'd like to request a copy of it 6 months in advance now. And I think it would be extremely helpful regarding the risk assessment that we're working towards. And the information contained could help to clarify some points that are missing from the general knowledge of the public. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, folks, we're moving to item number 10, and that's the Township Engineer Stormwater Announcements. Mr. Rick Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In mid-September of 2017, the township submitted a revised MS4 permit application to DEP as required. It's required every 5 years, although our current permit is 15 years old because it's never been renewed yet. But we submit the application along with a total maximum daily load plan and a pollutant reduction plan to the Department of Environmental Protection. We've just recently received a comment letter on those TMDL and PRP plans. We received 7 comments, most of which ask for additional information regarding calculations for best management practices and clarification of some engineering tables that were prepared by our consultant and some details on the DMPs. They also asked for a simplified map. We provided a 220-page detailed map book, and they want a single-page map. So we're trying to consolidate that. Yeah. Well, I don't know how they're going to read it, but so in concert with our consultant, HRG, township staff and HRG are preparing responses to the comment letter, which are due by July 30th, and they will be done in plenty of time to submit by that date. In addition to that, as part of the Mariner East fines that DEP assessed, there is now a DEP grant program for stormwater management projects, and the grant applications are due tomorrow. And the township is submitting 2 grant applications, one for a riparian buffer restoration project near the sewer treatment plant on Goose Creek, and one for a retrofit of 2 stormwater basins in the Christina River Basin, Brandywine Creek, which is high quality water in the northern part of the township, to retrofit 2 of those basins for water quality and volume reduction. So those will be submitted tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. Any questions from the audience? Mr. Casey.
This stormwater application, you know, I'm curious because we talked about this last year that it would come back deficient, and it has. And I've also been made aware that there's some changes in our application regarding some of the basins, specifically the Basin Road project. And what is going on with the Basin Road project? Is that still on the table, or is that removed?
The Basin Road project has run into a significant snag because DEP has classified the detention basin as a dam because it's a drainage area greater than 100 acres. Since they're now determining that it's a dam, even though it's been there for 40-some years and has never been classified as a dam, dam safety has to come out and do an inspection of the dam and determine how they're going to classify it. Until that's done, we can't get any permits from DEP or Army Corps of Engineers to do the stormwater project. So the project is basically at a standstill and has been at a standstill for about 9 months, waiting on DEP to come out and evaluate the dam. They are scheduled to do so on the 26th. And how long it takes them to make a determination after that, I have no idea, because we haven't dealt with dam safety before in the past.
Right, and I'm also aware that they specified a dam at Route 3 and Ellis Lane. At the end, there's a dam somewhere in that area that they've also signified as a crucial downstream concern. So it doesn't surprise me what you're saying, that they're recognizing these upstream issues for the Delaware County and so forth. So, but I'm just, what's the permit look like now compared to what it looked like when we submitted it?
Looks the same.
So we're still doing the same projects? Because one of the problems that we had last year was we didn't reach out to the owners of those stream banks. And
as I indicated to you last year, it's premature doing that, and that was not one of the comments from DEP. They have not requested any landowner concurrence at this point. That will be down the road if the projects are approved.
But, I mean, we haven't even attempted that yet?
No, because it's not the proper stage in the process to do that. Why do we go to a landowner to request approval for something that we haven't gotten approval to do in the first place?
No, it's not asking for permission for approval. It's just simply saying there's a potential here that you should be made aware of.
It's not required at this stage in the process.
Required is not the point,
Okay.
Mr. Craig. It's just,
It's not necessary.
you know.
Excuse me, we're not going to argue back and forth. You've made your point. Mr. Craig responded. You've made 3 or 4 other points. Mr. Craig responded each time. I think thank you for your comment.
Are we still shooting for the same amount of reduction as we were last time?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Any other questions from the audience? Mr. Craig, any idea when we would know about the results of those 2 grant applications?
I don't. I'm not aware of a time frame for them making a decision.
For the Mariner 2 funds, that one?
That's one of the same grant that you were
That's
mentioning.
the grants, yeah.
Yeah, we had a meeting with DEP, with a bunch of municipalities and Carroll Committee. When we had the meeting, which was 3 weeks ago, maybe,
Right.
they hadn't even come up with a scoring method yet for it. So I think it's really a little whimsical right now. They don't know what they're doing exactly. So I know they want to get the money appropriated quickly, but we're not sure.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is number 11, and that is the zoning officer's announcements. Mr. Bill Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The zoning hearing board will be meeting on Thursday evening for application at 981 North New Street, Road 10 LLC. The property is zoned R2. I had previously notified the board about this hearing because of the time constraints if we would take a position on the application. The applicant is requesting a variance and a special exception. They're requesting a variance from section 84-10-A, parens 2, with regards to lot width of the building line. The zoning ordinance requires 150 feet, and the applicant has 147.56 feet. So they're going for a de minimis variance there of about 2 feet. The special exception is from section 84-90.9.F, paren 1, to locate a driveway across the floodplain, which in the previous applications, this has been an acceptable practice. The applicant, their intention, if they receive these variances, is to move forward with a subdivision of the property to create a second lot. And we just need to know if the board would like to take a position on this application for Thursday.
And your recommendation?
We've had similar cases in the past, and I would recommend not taking a position. We have in the past.
Any questions from the audience? Next item on the agenda, number 12, approval of the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes of May 21st, 2018. I believe those minutes are already posted.
Yes, yeah, the draft version online.
Any questions in the audience about the minutes that were posted? Any questions from the Board of Supervisors? I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve in a second, Mr. Hagan and Mr. Purnell. All those in favor? Aye. Number 13 on the agenda is the approval of the Treasurer's Report dated May 31st, 2018 for the General Fund, the Sewer Revenue Fund, the Waste and Recycling Fund, and the Capital Reserve Fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds. Any questions from the audience about that agenda? Very well. Any questions from the board? Move approval. Mr. Purnell, have a second.
I'll second it, yeah.
Ms. Thunderbeck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we have number 14, a discussion and possible approval of Pennsylvania Commonwealth Job Training Grant Contract. And I believe that's what.
Yes, this is the, and I will admit, the Commonwealth did a really quick job reviewing and approving this grant. They did a bang up job getting this back to us. So this is just the contract for the board to approve tonight, so Derek and I can start the process to get the travel arrangements done. And we will, the way that the grant is set up, we can apply for reimbursement as soon as we have the expenses. So, but we have to apply by the end of this year for reimbursement. So we will do everything we have to get it reimbursed by the end of this year.
Sounds great. Okay. So folks, you heard about this grant and all the benefits of it. Any other questions regarding the grant? Okay, we do have one question first.
Casey, you just mentioned that you can submit for expenses. So I focused on the payment terms paid to this grant, where it says payment of a total cost of contract made to contractor upon the full execution and approval of contract by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm a little bit confused by that wording. Like you're saying, right, if there's something in here I did not see differently that said we get progress payments as they spend.
As soon as we and the Commonwealth sign off on this, we can start applying for reimbursement.
So we'll incur the cost,
Yes.
and then we'll immediately
we'll
ask
do
for
progress payment reimbursements. Because, you know, the travel costs are majority of the costs, plus the training itself is not cheap. It's $1,000 per person. So as soon as we expend those monies, we'll seek reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, only other follow-up question I have.
Yes.
More of a nuts and bolts type question about how we're going to make sure to choose the different firefighters. I mean, obviously, we want to put an emphasis on the local fire department.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've reached out to Westchester Fire, Goshen Fire, and West Whitewood Fire, people along the pipeline corridor who, you know, we would actually send to fight the fires. They were the priority. We had 25 slots.
Okay.
I believe we filled the slots.
We haven't heard back from the preliminary numbers, yes.
Okay.
But if you're counting, because we need licenses for people to make their travel arrangements.
Yeah, we're still waiting on some.
So they're trickling in, but from the preliminary numbers given to us by the departments, we will reach that number, correct?
So in case anybody asks, we asked the fire department, and they gave us the names.
Yeah, so we thought the leadership of each fire department was better to determine who goes than us. So that's correct, that's how we did it. As well as the county hazmat team is involved.
Yeah, some of the hazmat team members are joining the crew down to Texas as well.
I was going to move for Mr. Purnell as a fireman to go down.
There you go.
Let's sort of get a direct report as to what's going on. All right.
I'm going to second the motion.
I would say that. Just let us know. Okay, so do we need a motion to approve that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That's what I just.
Yep, motion second.
Second from Mr. Miko. Robin, thank you, Robin, seconded. Got to start looking over here for the motions. I should start on that. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Very good, thank you.
Number 15 on the agenda, it's a continued discussion of a residential rental property inspection program. I'm going to turn this over initially to Mr. Webb, and if you could just bring us up to date on that discussion. Eventually, we're going to have to take a vote on this, but I understand there was some information that we wanted to check into. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After our last meeting, the board had asked me to do some research as to what other folks were charging in the area, as well as Mr. Milan and I would discuss what the actual cost of the township would be so that we could recommend an appropriate fee. Because as we know, this program is not for the township as a revenue generator. This simply is for public health and safety. I provided the board a list of all of the Chester County townships that do rental inspections and what they charge for their annual fees and inspection themselves. And then I also included some of the Montgomery County municipalities as well. I spoke with Mr. Milan, and my recommendation with regards to fees would be $40 for the inspection of the unit per tenant change. With regards to the registration, that $40 would be across the board, tenant change. Whether it be a single-family dwelling, student house, or within an apartment complex. The registrations for a single-family dwelling, $40 annually. For apartment complexes, we would do anything less than 10 units, so fee of $100 plus $25 per unit over one. Then from 11 to 50 units, $100 plus $20 per unit over 11.
One second, so let's slow down for a second because I'm running furiously. 11 to 15 units. Give me the number.
11 to 50 units.
50.
Oh, 50, 50, okay.
Yeah. And that was $100 for the initial, for the fee, plus $20 per unit over 11 units. The next level would be 51 to 75 units, and that would be $100 plus $15 per unit over 51 units. And then the next level, 76 to 100 units, would be $100 plus $10 per unit over 76. And then the final would be $10 for 100 plus units, would be $100 plus $5 per unit over 100. And then if a tenant moves out and we have to update their rental registration, there will be a $10 charge for that. And basically, this information would also be shared with our tax collector and our building department to ensure that we're getting our local earned income. Because some of these folks, we don't know they're here, we may not be receiving our share for them to occupy residence in West Goshen. So those are the fees that I come up with. I think they're relatively less than what other municipalities in the county are charging. We think that we can certainly do it for those numbers, and the township will not lose money. We'll basically be breaking even.
So it's a two-pronged thing: health and maintenance, welfare type of situation.
Yes.
And second, to ensure that we're collecting the earned income from those individuals that are residing in those apartments, correct?
Correct. Then we know who's actually living there.
And then would it also parlay into making sure the landlords are including the rental income on their, is that part of
But
code? That's not.
we wouldn't be involved, we wouldn't have any involvement in that. I think, and another key point to this would be that we will also be able to ensure that things that should not be going into the sewer system aren't going into the sewer system. And we're getting additional infiltration, such as paying for rainwater or paying for your condensate from your air conditioning.
It's a safety aspect.
Yeah. More along the lines of safety, these will help us out.
Can I suggest that you have 5 levels? Is it possible to consolidate those a little bit?
Sure, I'm certainly open to whatever the board wishes. We did pass a resolution a few years ago that we can update the fee schedule as we feel necessary as well. So if we see this isn't working out, we can certainly update the fee schedule.
Yeah, my comment, just from an administrative standpoint, I would think that maybe 2 or 3 levels would be better than 5.
I would agree with that.
No.
Keeping track.
I actually took that from 2 municipalities in Montgomery County. Actually had that.
You're the one that has to do the work, so.
Yes. Thought we were going to give that to John Bozo.
Well, you, when I say you, the staff.
No, that makes sense, you. That makes sense.
Would you want to go to 51 and over? To 11 to 10, 1 to 10, 11:50 and 51 and over?
How do we want to do we do the flat fee of 100, and then how do we want to break the unit fee down? Do we want to do 25, 15, 5?
25 and 15 sounds right.
And then we'll have we have, so we'll have,
We have 3, so.
we do 3 tiers. We'll need that last tier. So do 5 for the last tier?
I'd put it at 10.
10?
Okay.
I really think.
25 to 10 is the recommendation.
Yeah, I haven't been a slow man.
25, 15.
Yeah. That's an excellent idea.
Just a follow-up, what kind of research have we done, just to make sure I know that this is not supposed to be a money generator? In other words, we're not supposed to be making a profit out of this.
Correct.
I'm sure it's not an exact science, because we've got some factors here that, have to play out. Whatever would be, I wouldn't want something that we could revisit and change the fees and put it.
Yeah, we can adjust the fee schedule at any time.
But the other side of the coin is, are you sure it's enough money to cover our costs? I don't want to make money off it, but at the same time, I don't want the township losing money. So how did you come about this number that you think you might be able to justify that it would be okay? Understanding that we could always come back to the table to adjust.
So what we did was we looked at what the folks who would be involved in the inspection process and actually tracking this information and building a database and updating the database. We looked at what all our costs for that person. And we based that, we say, for instance, an inspection may take 20 minutes. Maybe a half hour, but 20 minutes. And then we figured out what our cost would be with the employees that would be doing that, along with the other ancillary percentages that we could charge. Was it 12%, something like that?
We use 12.5.
Or that covers insurance, just so we make sure we cover all of our costs.
How many different employees are we going to have to hire to handle this?
We should be able to handle with existing personnel, but we will see once we get into this. We'll see how it goes.
Do you project any higher?
I'd be speaking out of turn if I projected that. I would leave that to, I'd put Rick on the spot on that one.
I have no data to determine that.
Mr. Lalonde, Mr. Davis, myself, and everyone in the codes department, the inspectors are eligible to do these type of inspections. So through the course of the day, I personally wouldn't see it. Until we actually get into the meat and potatoes of it and get it rolling, we surely wouldn't know. I can't imagine that we would run into issues.
So it's a possibility.
Oh,
To
absolutely.
be fair. Okay.
To be fair.
And I mean, it just, I know how busy Casey is, I know how busy Derek is. Like going out to inspect the house would probably would be something that pretty much up. Yeah. So,
Unless there's a major problem.
Bill, have you considered, you started off by saying $40 is the inspection fee per tenant change. Is that the base inspection fee, or what differentiate? Why is that different than the tiers that you then listed?
The tiers are the annual registration.
Okay, so they're annual, okay.
Correct. So the inspection is just at a tenant change.
Okay, per tenant change.
Correct.
Okay. And then you said at the end, a $10 fee to update rental registration.
Correct. So when they have a tenant change, we'll have to go in and update their new registration form and pass all that information along to all the other people who will look at this information to ensure that that person is on our tax rolls so that we're receiving.
So when there's a tenant change, they're going to actually pay $50. $40 for the inspection per tenant change and $10 for the update, to update the form.
Yes.
Okay, I just
They
wanted
would
to...
pay the new registration every time they change that.
Right, okay. All right.
But Bill, just one more question. If an ordinance is passed, what are the plans to disseminate and to enforce the ordinance? So in other words, we'll have this law in the books, but how are we going to go about getting the word out for homeowners and rental owners? This is a requirement.
Mr. Davis and I had that discussion last week. We would put an article. We couldn't do it for the newest newsletter because we still have to, the board has to authorize advertisement of this ordinance, that hearing next month, if you so choose to do so. Once it's passed, I think we can get it into the September newsletter to put that information out there. And I also have the list of tenants forms that I have been receiving over the years, and I would notify those folks, and then it would be a simple call to the apartment complexes. I would also need to get with Cheryl, and we would look at trying to figure out through the billing if the bill is going to someone outside of the municipality, that would generally tell us that there's probably a rental there. And I would speak to her with regards to that. So it would take us some time to get the data together, but once we have it in place, I think it would be a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, I don't think any of the data that was provided tonight by Bill has any impact on the ordinance itself that had been drafted and at least reviewed. This information will be put into a separate resolution that will amend the fee schedule to include these fees. So the ordinance is one thing. You don't need a public hearing, just advertise it once prior to your next meeting for consideration. And then it would probably be prudent when you enact the ordinance to then immediately follow with adopting the fee schedule amendment.
Very well. Well, I'd like to turn it over to the audience and see if there's any questions about this proposed policy. Mr. Casey.
Anybody else wants to go first?
How about first?
Okay. Oh,
Hi, good evening. Jill DeBenny. I am a West Goshen resident for almost 14 years, and I definitely support this. I have next door to me, not when I moved in, but has since turned into a rental property of college students, and I definitely support this on multiple levels. So I feel that this inspection would be good, obviously for the safety of the students, but would also hold the landlord accountable for safety issues for myself and my quality of life on the other side of the fence. So I definitely think it's a great idea for both parties. So I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Do you have the address of that rental property?
Just to chime in, Ms. Benny and I, we've had
Yes.
numerous conversations in my 4 years
Yeah.
regarding her neighbors.
Yeah. And I wasn't gonna, it's not necessary to bring up the
No,
actual property per se. You know, maybe.
Instruct you to go over there and talk.
Oh, yeah, it's
We're
it's an
we're
ongoing
aware.
issue. Yeah, ongoing issue, but I just want to say I definitely support it and I would be very appreciative of it. So thank you.
This will give us the meat and
And,
to be able to get into the property.
just to see, you know, what we're dealing with. So, thank you.
If you discover an illegal use,
Yes.
then guess where it goes? Right to your office. This is not just property maintenance.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate it for my safety as well. Have a good night.
Mr. Casey, did you have your hand up? Did you want to go?
Yeah. See.
My first question, we don't know if we're going to need to hire employees, but how many zoning officials do we have that could do this currently?
2, 3, 4. I can act as one, so 5.
So 5 high-level like zoning officials
Or
that
deputy
can...
zoning officers.
Okay. So my concern is has there been like a rate of change study regarding rentals within the township? How often are they changed out? And if we haven't done that, then that might be a good idea to understand if those 5 individuals who, to be quite honest, have a lot more important things to do than to go in and inspect. So I think a rate of change for rental properties would be a good idea before you decide to pass an ordinance like this, so that you can understand just how often somebody's going to have to go out on a monthly, weekly basis to look at these properties. So I guess hearing this for the first time, I was made aware of this last month, we have, we're looking for apartment changes, we're looking for home rental changes, but are we looking for room rental changes? Like if I have my home and somebody's renting a room out for a couple weeks, does this include it in this ordinance as well? If somebody's, you know, just there for a very short period of time, because my wife and I used to open our home up to people from overseas that came to work for a local business, and they brought them in for a few weeks, and then, you know, we put them up and then they found a place to live. So does the ordinance also look into those temporary rental situations where you're just giving somebody a place to stay?
There's a definition in the ordinance of rental unit which will tell you that, and I believe that there is a time period. In other words, if you're, as you said, opening up your home for a week or two or what have you, that's probably not going to fall under the jurisdiction of this ordinance, but maybe, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but maybe 30 days or more, that then you're required to register under the ordinance. But I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, the ordinance isn't before the board tonight. It'll be advertised and available for public inspection before the next meeting.
Because the concern, I mean, in my previous, you know, some dealings I've had, where I've had my mother come to stay with me and she offered to pay us for her time, but it was over a time span of months. And if the ordinance...
Family members are...
Well, but my concern on that point is an exclusion under the law might be a problem for the ordinance itself, because my understanding is it has to be comprehensive and cover, it can't exclude. So we have to be careful with the wording on something like that. So
I'm not sure where you're sort of talking out both sides of your mouth, because you're saying you open up your house on the one hand and you don't want to have to pay a fee and be caught under the ordinance for something you're doing kindly, and we say, yeah, that's probably not going to require you. Then you say you want those kinds of things to be considered under the ordinance because you think people will try to take advantage, and I'm not quite sure where you're coming from, Mr. Casey.
Well, that's, actually, I'm not suggesting. My position is to follow all codes and laws within the township and the state. I'm not saying that I shouldn't be held to those standards. What I'm saying is, I'm asking the question, are these family members who are there for short periods of time? Not that I don't want to follow the law, but when we create such an ordinance, we have to make sure that it's not exclusion or giving special treatment to some and not to others. So we need to consider, these things in this ordinance. And the other is what is the penalty if somebody doesn't? Do we have that established?
Yes, the ordinance contains a penalties and violations section. Again, I don't have it in front of me, but there's the issuance of a citation and a fine, and it goes to court. There's due process. It's not like they don't have their day in court, but it'd be up to the township to prove that there was a violation of the ordinance and convince a judge to that effect.
Would that be a summary offense?
I believe it would be, because this is a housing type of ordinance, and in governing that, it should be a summary offense. Yeah. At magisterial district court, exactly.
Is it a landable offense?
No, it would be a citation.
Non-traffic citation.
Non-traffic
Judge
citation.
Between $300 to $1,000 plus court costs. Now, at the end of the day, this township has never been at the position where we just fine people. Fines are our last recourse to get enforcement. We always issue a notice of violation. They have so much time to comply. If they choose to not comply, then we have no other recourse but to issue a citation. And then that's where we go to district court.
So to Mr. Casey's question about data at the rate of change, how many times that's good? Could you speak to that? How many?
Good time.
Okay. Is there a way of quantifying that?
Just the biggest way to quantify that would be contacting the apartment complexes and seeing what their rate of change is.
Because I can see his point as far as, we have the fees, how many times are going to be applying these fees? And, how that might affect the cost. So perhaps we might want to look into that. Any other questions from the audience? Thank you, Mr. Casey. Maxine? Oh, I'm sorry. She was first.
Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
You probably would do this, I'm not sure if you have a landlord registration form. Is that what's used here? Okay, so then that language could be in it, so that tiered setup would be, and then makes sense. That's it, thank you.
We actually currently have one, but there's no fee attached to it.
Right.
Okay, yes, I am in favor of this rental inspections, but how are you going to know if there's been a change in renters? That's a major concern, how you're going to know. And we've talked about, the second point is, you've talked about penalties. There's two kinds of penalties. One is that if a landlord has not registered or informed you that there has been a tenant change, then I believe there should be some kind of penalty for that. Otherwise, there's no incentive for that landlord to pay all of this and comply. The other penalty would be if there are inspection areas that do not conform, then that means that a follow-up has to be done to make sure. All of this is very time-consuming, and the penalties for that, in that instance. Also, the other concern I have, or issue, would be, when you say 20 minutes for inspection, included in that should be the commutation time for a person to get from the work site to the residence and back. And I do not, even if you only had 10 rentals, I cannot see where that would, even 10 rentals would impact the job, the time requirements, maybe not a full person year, but some percentage of. So in addition to what she mentioned about the registration, you might want to talk to some real estate agents to just get an estimate, like Casey said, on what the turnaround could be to help you in ascertaining whether you really may need a person year added to, or how many people years you would need to be added to your current workforce. Otherwise, you're saying that you have 5 people who are sitting with their thumbs up with nothing to do. That wouldn't be too politically correct either. And I don't think it would be accurate anyway, because these people are busy. That's all I had. If you don't have penalties and incentives for improvement and for compliance, you're nowhere.
I can answer your question.
Okay.
In the ordinance, there is penalties for failure to register the property, which would be the same penalties as if you didn't get an inspection. Because by ordinance now, you're required to register the property by the 31st of January every year and at tenant change. Would also be non-traffic citation filed in district court if that landlord didn't comply with the notice of violation. With regards to the time, this is a simple checklist that we're going to go by. It's designed, the checklist was designed out of the property maintenance code so we can walk in and say, yep, you have smoke detectors, check. You have shut-off, you have the shut-off valve or the emergency shut-off for a gas-fired appliance, such as that. When a previous township that I had worked for, we did rental inspections and we did 2 every hour. And that gave us time, that included our drive time. So it was basically half-hour increments.
Yeah,
So that's where we feel that the 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
But that didn't include the time that it takes you to get there and back.
Because we scheduled 2 an hour. 2 inspections every hour.
But you have to get there and you have to come back.
If you schedule near each other.
Hmm?
If you schedule 2 near each other, then it's already there. It's like-
Well, right, yeah, but it can average out, you know. Getting from one apartment to the other apartment in the same building can take 15 minutes or more. And that adds up.
Maxine, you never seen me move.
Hmm?
Like a ninja.
Sounds like a ninja.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Also, there's that time travel thing that you did.
Yes.
That's also, yeah.
Beam us up, Scott. Beam us up.
Now, there's no reference from here. Any other questions from the audience? Any other questions from the board? Any suggestions from the board? Mr. Burnell.
The cost account in me comes out, and I think that the fees are probably, if anything, a little on the low side. And I think they should be revisited at some point in the future, but I think it's a good starting point.
Okay, what do you have to say from a fireman's perspective? Andre, yourself, I mean, what are the benefits? I think the audience would like to hear the idea of being able to go into some of these places and actually perhaps see something that might be a fire hazard.
I'll defer to Andrew, but I haven't done inspections in 15 years.
Absolutely, there's benefit out there. There's people out there every day that do things in their home that, they watch TV and think they can do it, or YouTube. So there's definitely a benefit for us going in there and making sure that places are safe.
Any other comments?
One of those comments. Bill, have we considered a re-inspection fee, the $40 annual, and then the per unit fees? What if someone, and they could include a first inspection and a follow-up, But if there's a third or fourth or fifth.
I meant to include first inspection and follow-up are included, because everywhere I'd been previously, that's how we had done that. And then after that, there was a tiered level. When I was at Valley, on the third, if you failed and we had to go back a third time, you paid that inspection fee again. If we had to go back a fourth time for the same stuff, it jumped to $100. If we had to go back again for the same stuff, it went to $150. I can honestly say I've never had to go back more than twice. Because you're giving someone a checklist and you're saying,
I just want to include, it may never used, but we should have.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree.
Mr. Casey? I'll let you get another bite at the apple, but I have to make it quick. It is.
Just a clarification on the rate, on the fee. Is there a, I know Mr. Purnell said that, he'd like to see it a little higher, but is there anything in the ordinance that prevents the landlord from turning this fee over to the renters? As far as, paying this fee, is this fee for the owner of the property or for the renter themselves?
Property owner would pay. Whether they turn it over to their tenant in the form of an application fee, that's not the township's business. But the tenant would not be the one paying this, to be the property owner.
So I for one see the benefit of this, the health, safety, and welfare aspect of it outweighs any intrusion concerns that I might have had. But having said that, I think we have to go through a formal process of advertising an ordinance. So do we need a motion for that, Mr. Sanders, to advertise?
Yes, that would be appropriate.
So I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to advertise.
You?
Mr. Chanel, second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And that'll be for meeting date, July.
July 17th, I think, is our July 17th.
Advertised for July 17th.
Court reporter is already meeting.
No. You mean a roll call?
Yeah.
No. It was 5-0, I assume.
I don't want to.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to move on to,
I just want to make sure everyone's questions.
okay, first we're going to move on to item number 60. That's a discussion and possible approval of a participant continuing disclosure agreement between West Goshen Township and the Delaware Valley Regional Finance Authority. We'll hand this over to Mr. Lalonde.
Certainly. On an annual basis, this stems from our 2012 Del Val loan for the Public Works Building. On an annual basis, as soon as we get the final audit report from our auditors, we are required to send a copy of that to Del Val for their records. This just formalizes that requirement that we do it. We've been doing it ever since. We've done it for decades with our various loans. The new sewer authority bond requires the same thing as the sewer authority. This just kind of codifies our requirement to do that. It also requires, which we would do, this again just codifies what we have to do. In section 4 on page 2, there's a series of listed events. They're all bad things that we've never experienced here at West Goshen, including principal and other payment delinquencies, non-payment related defaults. I'm just going to go through generally. Rating changes of our rating status with Moody's, unscheduled draws on credit enhancements reflecting financial difficulties. These are events that we would have to notify Del Val if we are experiencing some very stressful financial times for the township. Obviously, we'd never have to do this. It just codifies again what we have to do to notify Del Val based on our 2012 note with them. So I'm just seeking approval of the board to sign the continuing disclosure agreement. And we should have the audit back soon, Gene? They're we're just waiting down copies to be back so we can submit it to Dell now.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Mr. Purnell. Do we have a second? I have a second from Mr. Miko. I'd like to open it up to the audience if there's any questions about this. No? Okay, so let's put it to the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible approval of Resolution 14-2018, Township Finance Department Records Destruction. Once again, I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Braun.
Yes, sir. We do periodic housekeeping for destruction of records per the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission. And it lists various finance department records, everything from, let's see, Judge County restitutions, AP invoices, journal entries, etc. With specific date ranges. We destroy them per the Museum Historical Commission manual on record retention. So we're just seeking approval on that tonight, so we can destroy those records.
Motion that we approve this.
Motion from Mr. Purnell for approval and a second from Mr. Bacon. Any comments from the audience? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Number 18 on the agenda, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 15-2018, prohibiting right turns by semi-trucks onto North 5 Points Road on Fern Hill Road. Mr. Craig?
Yes, Fern Hill Road is a state highway, North 5 Points Road is a township street. There is a very sharp radius turn from Fern Hill to North 5 Points. There is guide rail present at that intersection, and the guide rail has been hit probably 3 times in the last 2 years. It's not our guide rail, so it doesn't cost us anything, it costs PennDOT, but it is our road that's being turned onto, and trucks cannot negotiate that turn. So we're suggesting that a right turn restriction be placed at that intersection to improve traffic safety there. Trucks are going into the opposing lane of travel to try and make the turn, which is dangerous, particularly when there are vehicles there, and plus there's damage periodically to the guide rail.
Where would it go?
Yes, where would they
They
be?
would go straight down Fern Hill Road to Paoli Pike, which is generally where they're going.
Right.
Anyway, they're going to Paoli Pike. Now, it might be further down Paoli Pike than they want to go if they want to get on 202, but there's a much shallower turn at the traffic signal at Paoli Pike and Fern Hill Road.
And the guide rail's been destroyed several times there.
It's not good. It's not good, but it's better.
Did our police department's traffic division?
No, they did not. I did. I analyzed the intersection.
What's that?
I analyzed the intersection.
Yeah, any feedback from the traffic?
I'm sorry?
Any feedback from the traffic division?
I did not get any feedback from the traffic division.
Mr. Purnell,
I can do that.
Well, being familiar with both intersections, the one up on Paoli Pikes, it seems to me is as bad as the other, except that it's 2 state roads.
It's bad, it's not as bad. The radius is a broader radius than the radius at Fern Hill Road. So it's a matter of degree. Neither of them are good, but Fern Hill Road is very bad. And as I indicated, there's frequent damage to the guide rail there, and there is also frequent intrusion into the opposing traffic lanes.
Yeah, the last time there was an accident, there was maybe 3 weeks ago. I happened to drive past after our police arrived. A UPS tractor trailer was up on the guide rail suspended, and one of those big trucking cranes had to come and remove it from the guide rail. So
Yeah, we had to go all the way around through and
it took about 2 hours to clear.
The other thing too is if truck traffic wants to get to Paoli Pike without the difficult turn, they can go down Turner Lane. It's pretty much a straight shot.
That's true.
So if they're going eastbound, then they go down Fern Hill, and that's a very shallow curve. If they want to go westbound, then they go down Turner Lane, which is not an issue at all.
So I don't know if this is a comment or point of view, but I think both of those intersections are inadequately spaced for trucks, in addition to the fact that if you allow them to pass the North 5 Points Road intersection, they're now going through a completely residential area too, which is also a concern. So Turner Road, given the fact that that's close to the proximity of the semi-industrial area within our township, why can't we create an ordinance or have some changes so that they actually come out on Turner Road, which has got a fully ample and online, on-access north or south is 202, which are ready to pave with initially 4 lanes until it becomes the 2 lanes.
And that could possibly be done. It would require a no truck restriction on Fernhill Road, which is a state highway, and we don't have the authority to do that.
Do we have the authority to petition for it?
We could ask for it. Yeah, Turner would work for either one, because it's okay turning left at Fernhill and Bailey Pike, but you accomplish the same thing by going to Turner. So I don't know that a no truck restriction would be that detrimental in that area. Again, we can't implement that because it's a state highway, but we could request it from PennDOT and then do a study.
Just thinking about Bailey Pike already and the congestion on that road to begin with, and then a tractor maybe be the only vehicle that actually can leave that intersection at Fernhill and Bailey Pike to make those either turn right or left, correct? I'm surprised that they can make the right there, but I trust your judgment on your analysis.
You know, it is a difficult turn. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying it's less difficult than for North Pike.
How's that going to affect us?
Buses are not affected by no truck restriction.
Oh, I understand that. That wasn't the question. How is the restriction on that corner going to affect the buses? Does it?
It's not a bus restriction.
Yeah,
It's a truck restriction.
So maybe this solves a problem for PennDOT as well. If we keep them, if they can allow us to look at Turner intersection, right? They're going to save the bridge repairs they make every year.
If you do that, Wayne Moving Storage is right now below there. How's it going to affect our resident company?
It isn't going to affect Wayne at all, because Wayne doesn't make a right-hand turn, Wayne goes straight.
It wouldn't prohibit the straight-through movement.
You're not restricting trucks on 5 Points Road. You're simply restricting a right turning movement on the 5 Points Road. Now, if you want to go further and try to channel the traffic to Turner, then you're going to need a no truck restriction, and that's a different animal. I guess what I would suggest, we try the turning movement restriction and see if that alleviates the problem. If it doesn't, if it creates more problems, then okay, we need to go to no truck restriction. But we haven't experienced any problems other than this isolated area. So I would suggest we try this first and see how that works. It's you know, it's a signing restriction. It can only be removed if we find a better way to do it.
How many accidents have been at that junction?
I haven't checked for sure, but it's a lot.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not necessarily opposed to it because I think there are 2 viable alternatives to being Turner Lane. If you're coming from the west end of Fernhill, then you know, once you know you can't make that right turn, if you come around it again, you know Turner Lane is your option. And Fernhill Road is a little better, but not much. My only concern is a truck that realizes he can't make the right turn and continues down Fernhill is now possibly going through the neighborhood to down on 5. So that's something we would have to keep an eye on to determine whether they start utilizing that neighborhood as an alternative. Then that may require an additional step. But I think it is a very difficult challenge to determine that.
Following up on that concern, Chief, I agree. I'd rather, I don't know, I think before we possibly create that situation, maybe we should do some more homework before we see how that would be. I mean, I understand there's immediate concern about it's just a feeling on it. These issues that are occurring, though, they seem to be occurring in a non-residential area primarily. And my fear is if we put this up.
We have Fresh Meadows across the street.
Right.
More people leave Fresh Meadows and cross the street to the park with strollers and dogs and kids. And then you have that terrible curve at the bottom of that. I don't think you're I think you're putting people's lives at risk rather than the guardrail.
Does anyone else?
Consider that term.
I know one little boy on a bike who ended up in the creek with a contusion because of that curve, just trying to go to the park.
There's a curve, it's not.
It's not easy,
And
but that's a different issue.
Send trucks in.
Well, having said that, let's take a poll on the board, how many volunteers
I was gonna make the motion that we approve the traffic regulation signs as presented here and try it for at least until the end of the year. And then revisit it.
The no grading on 5 foot. So we only need one sign.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. We'll keep an eye on it.
I think we should have an interim, but I would also like to make sure that we quickly move towards looking at the other alternative of using Turner. I
Well,
just think that's the most the safest, and because it's already somewhat of an industrial, commercial sector, it would be more suitable to that type of traffic.
I would suggest that we could also get an education campaign going to get a sign or something, or a missile put out to these different companies. Celeste, I'm looking at Elbridge, they're using tractor trailers, deliveries generally. Get those guys educated to take the delivery people, to the delivery people use Turner as opposed to 5 points. So it's both.
Excellent idea.
Because if they can't turn 5 points, they're either going to have to go to Bailey Pike or use Turner.
Right. Yeah.
So just put a sign there.
Maybe we can put some sort of bulletin together that can go out to all the larger companies.
Anyhow, I'll make a motion. We adopt this and revisit it at the end of the year.
Mr. Casey?
Possible to amend his motion by putting the sign to not turn right. If there's trucks that are coming out of Old Fernhill because there's businesses back there and they're attempting to turn left and then turn right, couldn't we also then put a sign at Old Fernhill and Fernhill Road directing the trucks to turn right to get to 202 to take Turner? A simple sign, all trucks, 202, turn right. So this way you're getting what you want regarding turning right after the bridge, but those trucks that are coming out of Old Fernhill are directed back to Turner at the same time. So if anybody's coming the one way on Fernhill, they can't turn right, they're going to have to pass the park. But if we can divert the traffic coming out of Old Fernhill from those businesses that are back there and make them go to Turner, it's 2 signs.
Can you also take in consideration when you're going, do I have to?
Yes.
Yeah, get me free pass first.
Public record.
Public record. Please announce your name.
Okay, Janice Cosgrove. When you're going where you want to send the trucks and they get out to Paoli Pike where you have a traffic light, you're going to have to stop the traffic coming down Paoli Pike because a truck is going to need both lanes to make a turn. That's a smaller intersection than 5 Points Road here. So when he's making a right-hand turn, you're going to have to ask the traffic. I'm going to drive down, I used to work at East High School I'm going to drive down and all of a sudden that truck's not going to be able to, I'm going to have to try to back up or go through the light. It's a skinny.
Turning radius on Fernhill Road, it's not our road, we can't do that. If PennDOT feels that that's necessary, or we can recommend it.
Well, no, do you understand what I'm saying on Paoli Pike, the traffic
I
going?
understand what you're saying. But
You're
I'm saying
completely.
We can't restrict it. We don't have the authority, it's not our road.
Okay, I'm
We
just.
can ask for it to be restricted.
Just wondering the
We can't
new
do it.
accent.
She's just saying that forcing all the trucks down to that intersection.
And how are they gonna make a right-hand turn without getting into the,
They're not, which is what they're not doing on 5 Points Road. It's the same situation. It's just slightly less intrusive on traffic. It's the same traffic.
Okay, so maybe I don't need to answer the question. When you say it's the same issue, I guess I was understanding that you were suggesting instead of making a right on North Prince Road, they would go further down Flint Hill to reach Paoli Pike, at which point they would make a left, but they'd also be restricted in making a right.
They would not be restricted from making a right because we can't restrict them from
Okay.
making a right. So if they choose to try to do that, they can. Ideally, they go down turn. That would be the best way to go.
So I
But
think
we
that's-
can't make them do that because it's not restricted to truck traffic. And we also can't put a left turn restriction on Old Fernhill, because it's not our road. And we would be restricting truck traffic on Fernhill. We have the authority to restrict the right turning movement on 5 Points, but not restrict truck traffic on State Highway. So it's a good idea, but we can't do it. So unfortunately, it's very convoluted because we don't own our roads. If there's a desire for a comprehensive solution, then it really needs to be referred to PennDOT for an in-depth traffic study. This is a simple problem that we're trying to fix one isolated incident. We're not trying to fix PennDOT's road. So if that's the desire and that's the concern, then that's what we should do.
So I have one more question. In this type of a situation, working on Mr. Brunel's suggestion, is there any reason we couldn't just go and meet with the owners of those companies who are originating the trucks? Literally having a conversation with them about the limited ability we have to create a solution that provides safety to our residents and allows them to be efficiently capable of leaving the area where their trucks originate.
We could certainly do that. The problem is you're never going to get everybody. There's going to be some truck from Timbuktu coming through there, and they're going to do the same thing.
I think what I'm suggesting is that is simply as an addendum to the original plan, which is to immediately sign what we can sign to prevent them making a turn there, because we know that's already an area of problem. But to do the best public relations campaign we can with those companies to get them to take responsibility for it as a, and I know they come from not just our township, but at least those that are in our township to be made aware of it.
Absolutely. And you can put it in the newsletter. Let everybody know about it.
Any other questions from the audience? Any other questions from the board?
Are we going to approve that?
Are we going to approve, or are we going to wait for a comprehensive
I
outreach?
believe that would take,
How long would a PennDOT traffic study take? A year, 2
It
years?
depends on how busy they are. 3 to 6 months probably.
well, for now, I would
Yeah, you
suggest
can always repeal this too.
we go with Mr. Purnell's, I'll second Mr. Purnell's motion, and then we ask PennDOT, follow up with PennDOT to do 3 to 6 months. Comprehensive
I'll
study.
amend my motion to include PennDOT application.
In the meantime, we put that in the right turn. And start a campaign, educating for local businesses.
And we're talking about a certain size truck, correct? Is this the 18-wheelers or a tractor trailer?
I'm looking into what signage we can put there. The problem is tractor trailers, but it's really not much better for a long box truck either.
Okay.
So most likely we probably go with just no truckers. No trucks right turn restriction.
26 months.
Signs don't differentiate that way.
Folks, if you just bear with me for a moment, I'm just trying to get on my notepad here at the intersection. I just have 2 questions.
But like a delivery truck.
Okay, guess we'll go for a vote. All those, do we have a motion in a second?
Yes, I seconded it with the amendment.
With the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
I would like to note that we can't redeal this just as quick as we enacted, because to Mr. Hargrove's concern, we start getting situations where we have 18 buses jackknifed on Paoli Pike trying to make a turn. Rather quicker, rather. Okay, that was number 18. Number 19 is public comment. Anyone who wishes to make a public comment, please step up and identify yourself. So thank you.
Hey, my name is Robert Brotchett, and I've been the township president since 1977. Over the last 6 years, I've filed 3 incident reports with the West Goshen Township Police Department and attended 3 board of supervisor meetings to put the township on notice about a public safety issue being created by township snowplow drivers causing snow to be thrown back on my sidewalk. Between Warren Road and Basin on Sylvan, my property is the only one that this has been happening to. Time and again, I've been told that township policy is to clear the roadway curb to curb. I have photos, security camera videos, and iPhone videos that will show that has not been the case on Sylvan Road, which would be a violation of township policy according to what I've been told. Where I work, if you didn't follow policy or procedures, you would be terminated. If anyone would like to challenge the documentation I have accumulated over the past several years, I welcome the challenge. I would also like an explanation as to why the snow throwback is only happening on my sidewalk on Sylvan Road. Also, I have notified my homeowner's insurance company about what has been taking place, and they advised me to continue documenting these incidents. They also advised me that if someone is injured because of this hazard being created by the township snowplow drivers and a claim is made regarding the injury, they will come after West Goshen Township. The one other question I have is why a combat wounded Vietnam veteran is being treated like a second-class citizen by this township. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir, could I have your name again so I can write it down?
BoS, A-B-B-A-S, last name Rabari, R-A-H-B-A-R-I, 1613 M-A-N-L-E-Y, Road, Westchester, PA, Township of East Goshen. Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the board, I'm here in behalf of my former spouse, Kim W. Rabari. She resides at 511 Cork Circle. This issue came about as a result of a parking violation. By the way, my educational background is engineering and physics. I own and operate a construction company and a home inspection company. I'm fully aware of the rules and regulation as it relates to these areas. With respect to 511 Cork Circle, I contacted the West Goshen public officials. We had a meeting with the police department, and overall, I resolved the situation by contacting homeowner association and installed parking signs. But what I'm about to say today is the course of conduct, the way I was treated by your zoning officer, your township engineer, your township manager, and also your fire marshal. There were 2 other individuals in that room, police department, which was Captain Stone and Justin Dominio. The way I was treated, it was bigoted, racist, unacceptable, both by the police department and by your township. The only remedy in law is when these people approach this way of behavior is to sue them. The way police department treated me, with all due respect to this chief, that he has attended the mosque. It's not attending to the mosque, it's how you treat your people. When somebody like me has a foreign accent, a foreign last name, when I'm treated like that, I take offense to that. Now, I know the law, I know how to function within it. I've taught police departments a lesson. I've investigated the police department and township, contact district attorney's office, contact East Goshen West Town Township, and I'm not going to tolerate this. Every contact from now on I have will be videotaped. And I'm going to put this township and this police department on notice. This is unacceptable behavior. Filing a formal complaint with the internal affairs is a joke. I'm a family member in law enforcement. I understand blue wall of silence. I understand creative report writing. If the chief wants to meet with me, I'll be more than happy to meet. The way I was treated is unacceptable. This is a course of conduct. This is a culture. This didn't happen yesterday. And also I mentioned the bad, let me mention the good. There was only 2 people in that room. I was treated fairly. One sits in that end with the camera. I think he identified himself as the assistant township manager, Mr. Davis. The other person was Captain Stone, very honorable man. And the second thing, when we came to these meetings, I was helping Mr. Broadchip. I observed a bunch of zoning violations, bunch of procedural violation as it relates to the Sunshine Act. I'm glad to see I didn't see that today. I came prepared. I compliment the board to correct that. But again, this kind of racism and bigotry will not be tolerated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rivard. If you gentlemen wouldn't mind staying just a little bit later after the meeting, maybe we could get some details from you.
I would be happy.
About that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I do want to say that the township, all of us on this board, take very seriously trying to treat people with dignity and respect. And I've yet to see any incidents that you tell me. This is quite alarming to me. My experience with the folks that you talked about, especially the police department, and knowing many different police departments, having been a defense attorney, having worked in corrections, I've never seen anything where they've treated anyone with any disrespect based on their race, religion, color, creed, whatever. So at that point, I don't mean to belittle what you said. Obviously, you feel strongly about it, and everyone has their truths. And I think there's always an opening for understanding, and there's always misunderstandings. And I would like to bridge any of those misunderstandings, perhaps. So I'm more than willing to speak with you, as I'm sure any other board member, about this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. That goes the same for you, Mr. Butcher. Thank you for coming. That said, any other public comment? Dr. White.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A resident neighbor of mine brought to my attention a concern he had about the cell phone towers being put on the utility poles. Crown Castle Company had come before the Planning Commission to discuss that. His concern was this move by the communication companies to go to 5G, which uses I think lower power, and they would need more cell phone antennas. So just to be aware of this move to 5G and an increase of numbers of cell towers may be being requested. I know you have a lot on your plate with it and a lot of different issues, but his concern was the cell towers of becoming more numerous in the township. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Casey.
Regarding those towers, those are the ones that are putting the straight piece going up? Is it the new ones they're putting in?
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the same ones that I had warned about when we originally came through, that not only are they going to put this tall one on the top, but they're going to start wrapping those poles with these things as well. They're in Philadelphia everywhere you go. So it's not going to be the same visual that they promised to us. My question is, if and when is the township going to start to live stream. We talked about this early on. I know we talked about it before you guys were sworn in, and we have a deal with Comcast. When are we going to be live streaming or putting these so that folks can actually watch it as it's happening instead of having to go back and maybe or maybe not watching the YouTube? Has that even been it's 6 months? So you said give you guys time. So
I recall you mentioned it before, we talked about it before. I guess we'd have to look at what the cost would be, the time would be, if any, so I would have to, refer to the township on that. I think it's a great idea for folks who can't get in here, who would like to participate, as you said, not after the fact, but not during. Having said that, I don't know what the engineering restraints are or what the costs are or whatever to that.
it shouldn't be too expensive. Even if you go with a decent camera setup, they just have to mount them in certain places. I'm pretty sure Turdetton Township live streams theirs, and there are other townships that are doing that as well. It doesn't take much to live stream when people do it on their cell phones. So, the cost is not cost prohibitive. We're talking potentially, if you go full-blown, really nice kind of gear, you're looking at a couple $1,000s worth of equipment, or you go with a low-end camera, see how it works. As long as you're getting the video live stream, there's some decent low-end cameras, $1,000 or less. So, but it was something that we had discussed, or it was mentioned about the live streaming when we first started putting the videos online, and now, I'm just curious if that's going to be something that's going to be tackled anytime soon.
Well, I'll ask our township staff, Mr. Lon, if we could look into that just to see.
Can I just interject for a second? With all due respect to the comment, the expenses to actually do a live stream like Turdetton and involve the cable companies is significant. It's not a small price. What I would suggest is, if the board were thinking about doing a live stream, I would do it via YouTube. We would still have to do some significant upgrade to the equipment, obviously, but to do the franchise cable contract way, the way Turdetton does, I know for a fact they spend a significant amount of money per year keeping that TV studio up and running. So
as compared to YouTube.
As opposed to a streaming via YouTube, there's some other devices that have to go into the camera in order to live stream it. I forget what they're called, but I can certainly look into it. But I mean,
you just look into it.
Sure.
Yeah. Whatever information you have, if you could provide us on that. I'm also ready to present it to the board.
It's also possible to upgrade the township website and simply purchase a video streaming app for about $200 maybe that you can put onto the website, and you turn it on when you're using it, and when it's off, nothing's happening. But you can attach, I'm pretty familiar with websites.
This is why I always talk to my 16-year-old son.
Exactly.
Right over my head.
There's an app for that.
Folks, any other public comment? Otherwise, have a motion to adjourn. I hear Mr. Purnell, I hear Mr. Bacon. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for coming up.
Thanks, everybody.